The trial of Jeffrey Epstein's former confidant and girlfriend has begun. In July 2020, Ghislaine Maxwell, a British socialite with close ties to deceased financier and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, was arrested while hiding out in a mansion in New Hampshire. She faces numerous charges related to sex trafficking and abusing children on Epstein's behalf. If convicted, she faces up to 70 years in prison. However, recent orders from the judge presiding over the case and a nomination from the Biden administration are making people wonder if justice will really be served. Epstein's connection to some of the world's most powerful and wealthy individuals has led to massive interest in the trial of his close associate, Maxwell. The pair have been connected to Bill and Hillary Clinton, Bill Gates, the British royal family, Chris Tucker, Kevin Spacey, John Glenn, Donald Trump, and more. While the case has attracted a lot of attention, there will be no cameras, no live streams, and no photos of the trial. Daily Wire is bringing you exclusive reporting from our sources inside the courthouse on the latest developments. Here's everything you need to know about the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell. The jury has been selected, and each side has made their opening arguments in the case against Ghislaine Maxwell. 4 key witnesses are expected to testify that Maxwell groomed them for sex with Jeffrey Epstein while they were underage. According to multiple alleged victims, Maxwell sometimes sought out young girls at shopping malls, posing as a modeling agent and handing out business cards. But instead of offering the girls a chance at show business, she allegedly encouraged them to engage in sexual activity with Epstein and other older men. She's also accused of pressuring girls as young as 14 to accept gifts and cash payments after they'd been with Epstein. The trial is expected to last up to 6 weeks while both sides present evidence before a verdict is reached. Ghislaine Maxwell had a complex relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, girlfriend, business partner, and executive assistant. One of Epstein's former employees called her, quote, the lady of the house, saying Maxwell seemed to be half ex-girlfriend, half employee, half best friend, and fixer. Epstein's former pilot testified that Maxwell was number 2 in the hierarchy of Epstein's world. The daughter of a billionaire media mogul, Ghislaine is no stranger to moving in the circles of the world's elite. Around the time her father died and his media empire collapsed, she struck up her initial romantic relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Maxwell became known for her presence at elite social events and her connections to the world's most powerful people. In many cases, she helped facilitate Epstein's relationships with the rich and famous. She was a fixture in the orbit of figures like Bill and Hillary Clinton. In 2003, she allegedly took a trip to India with Bill Clinton on a billionaire's private jet, apparently to complete a project with the Clinton Foundation. Though she was reportedly removed from the Clinton social circle in 2011, Maxwell was still on the guest list for a small dinner party with Clinton and some former staffers in 2014. But since Epstein's death in 2019, Bill Clinton has tried to distance himself from Epstein and Maxwell. Most notably, he denied traveling to Epstein's private island in the Caribbean. However, photos have emerged of Clinton being massaged by one of Epstein's alleged victims. Maxwell and Epstein also knew former President Donald Trump. In an NBC video from 1992, Trump and Epstein are seen together at Mar-a-Lago with Ghislaine Maxwell nearby. And in 2002, Trump called Mr. Epstein a, quote, terrific guy in an interview with New York Magazine. But any warm feelings toward Epstein would not last. In 2008, Trump reportedly barred Epstein from his Mar-a-Lago golf club for hitting on the teenage daughter of a member.
I had a falling out with him a long time ago. I don't think I've spoken to him for 15 years. I was not a fan of his. That I can tell you. I was not a fan of his.
The intertwined relationship between Epstein and Maxwell meant that his problems became hers as well. Allegations had swirled around Epstein for decades. And in 2008, the federal government offered him a plea deal, despite the fact that they'd identified 36 girls he'd sexually abused, including some as young as 14. Under that plea deal, Epstein was allowed to plead guilty to state-level charges of soliciting a minor for prostitution, which gave him the chance to avoid a life sentence and instead serve a relatively light 13-month sentence on a work release program. And even during that sentence, Epstein received special treatment, spending most of his time at the offices of his own organization. New federal sex trafficking charges were brought against Epstein in 2019 after the DOJ began an internal review of the 2008 plea deal that he'd struck with federal prosecutors. The world was shocked when just a few weeks after his arrest, Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in a federal jail cell in Manhattan. If he had been convicted, the 66-year-old faced a possible sentence of 45 years in prison. 11 months later, federal officials arrested Ghislaine Maxwell for crimes committed with Epstein between 1994 and 1997, along with a separate charge for trafficking a minor from 2001 to 2004. FBI agents found Maxwell hiding out in her $1 million New Hampshire home, which she'd bought in cash so that she could lay low. In a federal search warrant, FBI agents revealed that they knew Maxwell was in New Hampshire because she was using a phone under the name G Max to communicate with family members and her lawyer. The agents obtained access to cell tower data to determine her general location, but that did not provide detailed coordinates. In order to determine her exact whereabouts, the FBI used a cell site simulator, a device that tricks phones into providing location information and other data. At a press conference announcing Maxwell's arrest and the charges against her, the DOJ said that she, quote, played a critical role in the grooming and abuse of minor victims, in addition to making several false statements in sworn depositions.
Maxwell enticed minor girls, got them to trust her, then delivered them into the trap that she and Epstein had set for them. She pretended to be a woman they could trust. All the while, she was setting them up to be sexually abused by Epstein and, in some cases, by Maxwell herself.
The federal indictment against Maxwell includes sordid details about the 59-year-old's alleged methods of targeting and grooming the underage girls, as well as her personal participation in some of the sexual abuse. Her accusers say Maxwell recruited them as teenagers, sometimes by approaching them at their jobs or at malls in Florida. They say she would introduce herself as a modeling scout, even handing out business cards to the underage girls. According to one of her accusers, Molly Skye Brown, quote, she was just a predator prowling the streets, I have no doubt. The current trial against Maxwell is narrowly focused on a few victims and doesn't include allegations from several other women who say that Maxwell groomed them to be sex slaves, not only for Epstein, but also for many other rich and famous people, including Prince Andrew. One victim, Virginia Roberts, alleged that she was only 15 years old when Maxwell groomed her to be assaulted by Epstein at his homes throughout New York, New Mexico, Florida, the US Virgin Islands, and on his private jet. The lawsuit also alleges that Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, took advantage of Roberts at times in Maxwell's own apartment in London. Prosecutors haven't yet revealed why Roberts' allegations aren't included in the case against Maxwell. One possibility is that the claims against Prince Andrew would cause tension in the relationship between the US and England. Another suit claimed that Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz was involved in abusing the same victim and in the same locations. Dershowitz flatly denied the claims while conceding that he has visited Epstein's private island on one occasion. Like the earlier case against Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell's trial raises the question once again of whether the wealthy and elite are truly subject to the same laws as everyone else. Several developments in the case have led the public to question whether the trial will proceed fairly. For example, video and audio recordings of the trial are not permitted, unlike other high-profile cases such as the Rittenhouse trial. However, this is expected because the venue is a federal court, which bans video and even still photos, while the Rittenhouse trial took place in a state-level court. While other federal judges have allowed media and the public to listen to some proceedings over a phone conference line, that's also not permitted here. Many people have also pointed out questionable connections between the presiding judge in the case and the current presidential administration. Allison J. Nathan was Associate White House Counsel and Special Assistant to President Obama before he nominated her to serve on the federal bench. And on the day that Nathan oversaw jury selection for the Ghislaine Maxwell case, President Biden nominated her for a seat on the U.S. Court of Appeals. The announcement pointed to her LGBT status as the fulfillment of, quote, the president's promise to ensure that the nation's courts reflect the diversity that is one of our greatest assets. In a move that has since raised eyebrows, Judge Allison Nathan granted a motion to conceal parts of the case because she said they, quote, catered to a craving for that which is sensational and impure. For example, just one piece of evidence that will be partially redacted is Epstein's little black book of names and phone numbers for the rich and famous. In addition, some names of famous passengers on Epstein's private jets are also being concealed from the public. The mishandling of Epstein's case and his suicide also raises questions about the competency of the prosecution team. Epstein committed suicide while his case was being overseen by the same prosecutor facing Maxwell, Maureen Comey, the daughter of disgraced FBI Director James Comey. The trial is now underway as both sides have presented their opening arguments, and the prosecution brings witnesses to testify against Ghislaine Maxwell. Prosecutors previewed their star witnesses, They said that the women, who use pseudonyms to protect their identity, will testify that Maxwell preyed on them, at times taking the girls on shopping trips or promising them scholarships to earn their trust. The girls she targeted were often children of single mothers who were struggling to make ends meet. There also were times when Maxwell allegedly participated in the sexual acts to make it seem normal for the young girls. Maxwell's defense so far has focused on trying to distance her from Epstein. One of her lawyers described him as, quote, the elephant in the room, and told jurors, "You are not here to judge Epstein. You are here to determine if Ghislaine Maxwell committed these crimes." The Daily Wire's Mairead Elordi is reporting on the trial from inside the courtroom. She said the defense is making some strange arguments.
They compared her to Eve, as in Adam and Eve, saying that women have always been blamed throughout history more than men. They also called Epstein a 21st century James Bond, and they accused Maxwell's accusers of being after money and of having false memories or contaminated memories.
The attorney reminded the jury of a warning the judge had made to not be biased against affluence and opulence, that it isn't a crime to come from a rich family. For now, the prosecutors will continue to present their case and bring witnesses, including victims, law enforcement who searched Epstein's properties, and his former pilots. And while you can't watch the drama live on TV, you can follow the Daily Wire for all of the latest updates in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. I'm Cabot Phillips with the Daily Wire. Thanks for watching.